Hey, and welcome to Board of Life News for April 19th, brought to you by Tabula Games. This week I'm going to talk about Fury of Dracula, Trade on the Tigris, Megaland, Battlestar Galactica, and the Kickstarter for the Estates. Let's get to it. Fury of Dracula is getting its 4th edition from WizKids Games. Fury of Dracula is a classic Games Workshop game that's been around for a long time. Fantasy Flight had the license with the Games Workshop games for a long time, so then I think 2016 they released Fury of Dracula 3rd edition after it was long out of print. Shortly after they released the 3rd edition, they lost the Games Workshop license, so that game then went back out of print. WizKids picked up the Games Workshop license earlier this year, so now obviously they're printing this. The 4th edition looks really close to the 3rd edition. I think they're keeping the same cover art and everything. The main differences are going to be that it's going to have a new rule book, larger cards, and the biggest thing is it's going to come with fully painted miniatures. So yeah, you can check this out in July. Trade on the Tigris is a new game coming out from Tasty Minstrel Games, designed by Jeff Engelstein and Ryan Sturm. Jeff Engelstein and Ryan Sturm were the longtime hosts of the Ludology podcast. Jeff Engelstein still is, but Ryan Sturm left. But while they were doing that podcast, talking about game design and mechanics and things, they had been working on this game called Trading in the Mediterranean. They talked about it a whole lot over a long period of time. It was kind of a joke that they were making a Trading in the Mediterranean game called Trading in the Mediterranean, so obviously the name changed to Trade on the Tigris. But in this game, you're trading cards, trying to collect sets, but you can also, as your cultures are interacting, you're trading philosophies, and you have to be careful of those philosophies because they could kind of ruin the bedrock of your religion or system of government or things like that, which I really like as a thing in a game. It's less about, like, there's a lot of games that have, like, colonialism and stuff, and this is just about kind of the trade of ideas and how that can sort of be dangerous to the function of a community. So, yeah, interesting stuff. Megaland is a new game coming out from Ryan Lawcat's Red Raven Games. In this game, it's a push-your-luck game set inside, like, a video game world where you're fighting monsters and trying to collect coins to, like, build up your world and stuff. The most interesting part of this, or the most surprising part of this, I guess, is that it's going to be a Target exclusive. More and more these big box stores like Target and Walmart have been getting exclusive contracts on games where you can only buy them there. And it's been interesting because they haven't been the most expected game. Like, Red Raven Games is doing well as a company and stuff, but they're by no means like a huge company in the board game world. So it's interesting that this is going to be exclusive. It sounds like a more normal kind of what you'd expect, like video games, push-your-luck games for a Target exclusive than last year's Fog of Love being an exclusive for Walmart. But yeah, interesting stuff. Battlestar Galactica Starship Battles is a new combat miniatures game coming out from Ares Games. This game is obviously going to be set in the Battlestar Galactica universe. It will actually be set in both Battlestar Galactica universes, both the classic TV show from the 70s and the newer TV show from the 2000s. In it, you're going to have fully assembled, pre-painted ships. It's a lot like Star Wars X-Wing, but it is by the designers of Sails of Glory and Wings of Glory, some of the classic kind of combat miniature games. So it'll be interesting to see if they can break into the very saturated market with the Star Wars and Star Trek and D&D Dragon one. I have never seen anybody ever play that game, but I guess people do because it's in hobby shops still. But yeah, so the combat miniatures game terrain is pretty packed, but I'm a big fan of Battlestar Galactica. However, the, like, ship battles aren't what excited me most about Battlestar Galactica, and I think the Battlestar Galactica game already does a really good job of replicating what was interesting about that show to me. But I don't know, we'll see. This week's Kickstarter is for the Estates. This is an updated version of the game that came out in 2007, designed by Klaus Zach. This is an auction game that has been kind of widely regarded as just an incredibly cutthroat auction game. Basically, the active player selects something that they're taking to auction. You're building an estate, basically, everyone collectively. And they take it to auction, and they don't bid on it, but everybody else does. And then once there's the highest bidder, either the highest bidder pays that money to the auctioneer, or the auctioneer can choose to pay that amount of money to the highest bidder. So there's a lot of kind of push your luck, and it has that. It really accentuates the auction thing of, like, I don't want this, but I know you want this, so I'm going to try to charge you the most for it, but then if you don't pay me for it, I have to pay you for it. So yeah, really cutthroat, interesting game that's simple and quick. It plays in about 40 minutes. It is $49 right now on Kickstarter. All right, that's the news for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you follow me on social media. I'm at Chris Bryan Games on Instagram and Twitter. And make sure you check out my Patreon in the link below for all sorts of exclusive stuff you can get access to. Next week, I know I said I was going to do it this week, but it's going to be next week, is going to be my design vlog, my designer vlog, where I talk about games I'm designing and kind of the process and stuff like that, so you can get a look behind the curtain at kind of what goes on and how games get designed. So if that's interesting to you, make sure to check that out. This week's question comes from @Dan_Connolly via Twitter, and he asks, what non-game stuff are you up to at the moment? How much do things you read, watch, do affect your game designs? So, new stuff I'm into these days. I just got a 3D printer about a week ago, and that is kind of design adjacent. I've been learning how to use it. I've been learning about all that stuff. I do plan to use it to prototype some components for some kind of hard to prototype games I'm designing. But yeah, I've been learning a lot about 3D printing. I'm doing gardening because it's April, and in Texas where I am, zone 7, that's where it's the best time to plant your spring garden and stuff, so I've been doing that for the past month. I really like gardening. I really like working with plants and stuff like that. Gardening, it's just such a common theme in gardening and farming is such a common theme in games. It doesn't inform it a ton, but it is like a quiet time where I get to sort of focus on something and my brain can be sort of empty, so I do think a lot about game design while doing that. I've been rock climbing a bunch. I got into that about a year ago, and I often think how to make a rock climbing board game, but I haven't cracked that at all yet, so that doesn't really inform it that much. In terms of stuff I'm reading and watching, stuff that has inspired me lately, I've been reading Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, and there's some ideas in that I've thought about taking to board game. It's mostly, I guess, theme ideas, and since I'm usually a mechanics first designer, I'll think about like the theming in the world and stuff based on what I'm reading. Not as much I'm thinking about like how to mechanically replicate what I'm reading. But yeah, Left Hand of Darkness, and then I'm reading the manga Sunny by Taiyo Matsumoto. He's one of my favorite manga comic artists. And a manga of his, number 5, played a lot into a theme of a game that I have coming out later. Kind of the look of the world. I in terms of like the art direction of the game, I took a lot from that. So yeah, stuff informs me. It's usually not super direct. It was obviously in the case of like Dragon Ball Z, the game I designed for Dragon Ball Z, because I was making it for that property. So yeah, I mean, my brain's always kind of cranking on game design stuff and always thinking about it. So I'm sure pretty much everything I do goes through that filter somewhere in my brain. But yeah, thanks for the question, and I will see you next week.